Welcome to the show. With me today is Jean Swanson. Jean is a tireless anti-poverty activist. She's been inducted to the Order of Canada and is currently on the City Council of Vancouver. And thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure, yeah.
So Jean, I'm curious, you've been an activist for quite a long time. What inspired you to become an activist?
I don't know. I worked at I got hired at, I was slinging beer at the Patricia Hotel.
Okay.
And I could see that I was just making people into alcoholics. And that wasn't a very fun thing. And one of the people that used to come into the pub was Bruce Erickson with Libby Davies. And I got to talking to them, and they worked for the Downtown East Side Residents Association, and I could tell that they were doing good things, like trying to get housing, trying to get welfare rates raised, trying to get bylaws enforced. So yeah, I quit and started working with them.
And how has the transition from being a grassroots activist to being a City Hall politician been for you?
It's been pretty frustrating. It's really hard to get anything done at council because I'm in a minority, don't have the votes to get things through, and even when I do have the votes, they don't get implemented. Yeah, so it's been pretty frustrating, and it's also reinforced in my brain the need for the grassroots activism, because without that, it's impossible to get anything done at City Hall or at any other level of government.
So we're talking, the big issue in Vancouver right now is housing, and we have a tent city we have a problem with tent cities. We keep having these tent cities pop up, and then people have nowhere else to go, and then during the pandemic, they're being displaced. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, the pandemic has made homelessness really worse because the shelters have had to put in physical distancing, because people haven't wanted to let their friends couch surf so much because they're afraid of getting a virus. And so there's a lot more people on the street, and there's no place for them to go. And we did have the big tent city at Strathcona, and that was, in a way, that was good because it put a lot of pressure on all levels of government to get some money for housing, and we did get some money for a couple hundred units, but they aren't all ready yet. And even if they were all ready, we got like 200 or 300 units, but there's like 750 people on the street, so we still need a lot more housing.
Yeah, so I mean, the controversy is that people say that the people at these tent cities have been housed, but others are saying that they're not being housed. What's the truth? Is the truth somewhere in the middle, or what's?
Well, it depends on the individual, right? There are some individuals, I suppose, that go into housing and that maybe they want to visit with their grandchildren, but the rules don't allow visitors, or maybe their rules are too strict for them, so they leave. That might happen to a handful of them. I don't know. One of the things that I've been pushing for is a new model of managing housing so that the tenants are more involved. I know the SRO Collaborative is working on that, and I'm hoping something can come of it so it's not so much top-down, but it's more like a co-op, or not a co-op, but similar, with more people actually getting involved in running their own place, getting paid to do some of the maintenance, that kind of thing, helping to set their own rules.
Now, I understand that the city is working towards, or you're trying to work towards getting vacancy control. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The city has wanted vacancy control in the SRO since 2014.
Okay.
Vacancy control is when landlords can't raise the rent as much as they like when a tenant leaves. And because we don't have vacancy control in the Downtown East Side, whenever a tenant leaves, the landlord can literally double or triple the rent. And so that's made a lot of investors buy up buildings like the Lotus or the Alexander Court or Shamrock, and there's a whole bunch of them. And then whenever anyone leaves, they raise, double or triple the rent, or raise it a lot. And sometimes they even buy people out to give them thousands of dollars to leave, just so they can raise the rent. So if we could stop that, then we could maintain some affordability in the SROs. So the city has been asking for this for years, and I'm hearing by the grapevine that the Minister of Housing isn't opposed to it, and there's supposed to be a report coming to council in the fall about it, and I'm hoping we'll get a lot of pressure to support it and try and preserve some affordability for low-income folks.
Right. And the city has purchased a number of buildings just recently, the Patricia and a couple others, is that right?
The province got the Patricia,
Okay,
yeah.
right. And so what's going to be happening with that?
As far as I know, it's going to be hopefully housing for low-income people.
Are they going to repurpose the building, or do you know how that's going to take place, or are they already doing that? Are they just...
I think they're, doing some minor stuff. Hopefully they'll do things like put microwaves and fridges and stuff in the units.
Okay.
And they bought some other hotels too on Kingsway, and those are being renovated before people can move in.
Mm-hmm. What is happening with I guess I'm going to go into talk about street sweeps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any conversation with the city council about that recently, or?
Well, first of all, street sweep is when city workers and police come along and force people who are homeless or people who are selling stuff on the street to leave, and sometimes take their stuff. And I've talked to people at the city about this, and I've talked to, of course, a number of downtown east side groups. I've been working with them around trying to bring a motion forward to either humanize the sweeps or stop them altogether,
right,
depending on what's feasible. And I'm hoping to have a motion maybe by mid-October, along with some other stuff like stuff from Van Du about they're doing questionnaires with their members,
right,
about how the street sweeps have affected them, what kinds of things have they lost, that kind of thing.
Well, I hear stories of people like losing ashes of a loved one,
Yeah.
or losing their crutches, or
Yeah.
or their bedding, or whatnot. How is that not illegal? Like, how can you just take somebody's possessions and throw them away?
I asked that, right, and the answer I got was, if no one's there, they consider it abandoned.
Right.
So say you have a tent with your stuff in it and you leave to go pee somewhere, and somebody comes along, it's abandoned. So that's how they get away with it. So I think Pivot is looking at, is that really legal or not?
Yeah. I was talking to someone at Fiona York. She's been an advocate for the unhoused at Crab Park, and she has recently been banned from the park for taking blankets that the bylaw we're going to throw out. I mean, that seems like way over the top.
Yeah.
What can we do about these tent cities? How can we get support for these tent cities to stop all this harassment? What needs to be done?
It's a really dicey thing. Like, do you want to support shelters even? Because then it costs like $60, $70 a night per person to run a shelter.
Yeah.
All that money goes into shelters, it doesn't go into housing. And then do you want to go to an even lower level of supporting people outside, and all that money goes into supporting them and it doesn't go to housing. So you have to be sure when you support people who are on the street that isn't used as an excuse to not build the housing that is what we really need, and decent, dignified housing, right? Where people have some choice. So yeah, it's a dicey question. I've put forward motions about looking at tiny houses, and so far nothing's happened in that respect in the city.
Well, how come we can't get more money from the feds to build more social housing?
I don't know. The feds are always talking about housing. They just came yesterday and made this big announcement about 58 West Hastings, which the community has been fighting for since 2006. And they said, I think it was that we're giving $48 million to contribute to this, But actually, it turned out that, a good portion of that wasn't actually a gift. It was a loan that has to be paid back.
Oh,
and that
really?
means that the rents have to be higher, right? So that the people who move in there can't all be people on welfare, although some of them will be people on welfare. Thank God we got that. Yeah. So they need a lot more pressure. We need an election, federal election is coming up, and we need a lot more pressure on the feds to put more money into housing and to actually end homelessness like within 2 years or something.
Right.
Not, as they said, to end chronic homelessness within 10 years. And they said that in 2017, and homelessness has just gone up, so they haven't really done anything about it.
So election's going to be coming up next year for city council. Have you thought of rerunning for city council again?
I've thought of it, but I haven't decided yet.
And if you don't run again, are there any hopefuls? Are there any people that you would like to see run for council in 2020?
Well, there's people that I've got my eye on, but I'm going to talk to them first before I say it
Right.
in public. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to activists that are fighting for housing right now? What's some words of wisdom that you can share with some young people that want to get into fighting for housing? And
Well, that Strathcona Park encampment and the Oppenheimer Park encampment were in the news a lot, and there was a lot of people that worked to support, that didn't live there, that worked to support those people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should have a huge pat on the back, because I don't think we would have got the housing that we got if they hadn't have done that.
right,
So if you can support people who are actually homeless and advocate for them, like I'm getting letters at City Council every day, like yesterday I probably got 10 emails about don't push the people out of Crab Park. If you can keep doing that kind of thing, I think that helps to just, I'm always, when I write back, I say keep up the pressure, because it's really important to keep up the pressure. We do need housing for everybody that's homeless, and we shouldn't stop until we get that.
And can you talk a little bit about, recently you've been giving out Safe Supply. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So 2 groups, the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users and the Drug Users Liberation Front, asked me if I would come to their event where they handed out cocaine, meth, and heroin,
Right.
and that they have tested that's
Yes.
safe. And they gave 1 batch to Vandu, 1 batch to Dolph, 1 batch to the tenant overdose response organizers, and 1 batch to Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction. These are all groups that have drug users as members, and their whole rationale for existing is saving lives. So yeah, so we did that. And the purpose of it was to put pressure on the government to bring in an actual safe supply so we don't lose almost 6 people a day to poison drugs.
Right. And are you hopeful that's going to happen, or do you expect that to be co-opted? And
The next day, the province made an announcement that was like another baby step forward, but when you're losing 6 people a day, you don't want a baby step, you want a giant
Right.
step. And so it's another one of these keep up the pressure things, right? We've got to keep up the pressure. 6 lives a day is too much.
Right. How do you think the city has been doing as far as the pandemic's gone, and addressing the issues of the pandemic and keeping people safe? And
So a lot of that is coastal health,
yeah,
and the city just kind of follows along and does what coastal health says.
mm-hmm.
So
Is that a good way of doing it? Can it be done better, or?
It depends, Like, I have a tendency to be conservative around COVID issues,
Right.
maybe because I'm 78 or something.
Right.
But if you put that into politics, you get somebody like Jason Kenney in Alberta who's telling people that they don't even have to be isolating if they get COVID.
Right.
So maybe it is better to have it out of politics and have somebody like Coastal Health. I mean, it's not completely out of politics, of course, but maybe it is better to have a non-elected body doing that that's based on science.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about, how do you feel about how the city's handled the recent heat wave? A lot of people have died in the province. Do you think we're taking the right steps to make sure that people have access to water and cooling centers? Or
Yeah, I think we'd never experienced that before, so people didn't, in the institutions like the ambulance and the city and the coastal health,
Yeah.
the hospitals, nobody expected that what happened would happen.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time it went up to 42 Celsius.
It never did.
Yeah.
It's the first.
Yeah.
So for this heat wave that we're in right now, which isn't nearly as bad, they've tried to put in some fast measures. Like, I know we got a misting station in Marpole, and the city is delivering, pallets of water, and the cooling centers, the community centers that have air conditioning are open for longer hours, that kind of thing. And ambulances have staffed up, I think, and hospitals have staffed up. So it should be a little better, but
Yeah.
I think we need more structural things, like we need to retrofit apartment buildings with heat pumps for the environment, and also
Right.
because there'd be air conditioning.
Yeah.
And we need some sort of program that we can do that so that tenants don't get their rents raised because of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of, and we need air conditioning on the east side. We need more trees,
Yeah.
especially in lower income areas, right?
Yeah, I keep thinking like my apartment, it's got to be like 100 degrees inside it right now. I
Yeah.
keep waiting for somebody to break my window and let me out. So.
Yeah, I know the SROs are
Yeah.
going to be just terrible. Yeah, I survived by putting a wet tea towel in the freezer.
Oh yeah, that's what I do. I basically soak my shirt to
Yeah.
keep cool.
Yeah.
Jean, I just want to thank you for being with me today. If people want to contact you, is there a way for them to contact you, or just to go to the...
Just go to my City Hall thing, and there's a phone number there, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you for watching.
Given that we are today learning of more children's bones found in Saskatchewan on the grounds of residential schools, and that adds to the bones found in Kamloops, how do you feel moving forward? How are you going to acknowledge Canada Day this year, the 1st of July 2021, Stephen, my friend?
And we'll still celebrate Canada Day, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Being it's been with us for since the beginning, since this country was fought for, and our allies, a majority of them were First Nations. So in respect with regards to their sacrifice, and so many other Canadians, I believe I'm still gonna be a part of Canada Day because they fought for us to be there, but I'm gonna have a lot more reflection in regards to just what happened, and 215 found in Kamloops of children, and daily that number increases all across Canada, all across Turtle Island. That number is increasing as we speak. I was just speaking to a friend, and she said that no way that she would celebrate Canada Day because of the situation that we find ourselves in, and just it's too painful, too much trauma, too many triggers involved in this. So I will be a part of Canada Day, but I will have more reflection on what it really means to me as an Indigenous man, knowing what we're dealing with and how do we move forward. Well, one heartbeat at a time. There are those that are not gonna want to look at this issue, but the children have spoken through the heartbeats of our women throughout Canada, throughout the 4 directions, so their voice is finally heard. I've experienced abuse in residential schools. I was a residential school survivor, but I had a voice today. They didn't. So I'm hopefully I'm gonna be thinking about that and how do we move forward? How do we move this forward in reconciliation? Well, it starts with one heartbeat at a time.
Now tell us, how are you going to celebrate Canada Day or observe Canada Day, given what we've learned about residential schools and the children's lives that were lost on residential schools?
Well, history is here to teach us not to repeat it. So with this, it is really an eye-opener, not just for Canada, but all the nations and all the countries that have been affected by colonization and by the tools that it implements to people, nations, through systematic, through physical, mental. And for me, like, I come from the Philippines, knowing that the country is fully colonized and been affected by the Roman Catholic Church. It is an eye-opener for many people, not only in Canada, but the whole world. So from here, it really teaches us that this happened in history and it shall not repeat. However, Canada has its own policies that are still affecting children right now. We see this through the family separation policies that Canada has. The family separation that they used against the indigenous peoples here are still being used by Canada against other nations, including the Filipino people, with the family separation policies under immigration and labor policies. So with that, hopefully Canada will learn not to repeat the atrocities of the history, because the impacts are tremendous and it shall not be ongoing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Monday, July 12th, 2021. Members of the Defund 604 network gather at Oppenheimer Park to ask the public how they think the $340 million police budget could be better spent. People were asked to fill out the survey and were treated to snacks and refreshments.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. This is a project of the People's Budget of the Defund 604 network. Today we are in Oppenheimer Park, newly liberated, although still a little bit gated, and we are sharing the People's Budget with community, getting their input on how we should prioritize funding as a community. Instead of spending $340+ million a year on police, we're asking folks how they would like to see those funds spent, and people are responding in a plethora of incredible ways, like housing, like Safe Supply, like UBI, and it's a pleasure to be here today. The People's Budget is a working group of the Defund 604 network. So the Defund 604 network is a collaboration of different individuals, organizers, community members who came together to organize around the defunding and eventual abolition of the police of all forms, not just the BPD. And one of the ways that we decided to engage in that work was to engage in the work of a People's Budget survey. So going out into the community, finding out how they want to prioritize spending, and then using that information to lobby our provincial, municipal, and federal government for better policy that allows us to defund and eventually abolish the police. The results that we've been getting from the survey have been in the hundreds, which is incredible. Our goal is to beat the amount of respondents that the VPD was able to get from their nonsense survey that allowed them to create the Neighborhood Response Unit, which was going around terrorizing people in the downtown east side. So we are firmly on our way to meeting that goal, and the responses that we've seen so far in it are exactly what you would expect from the community at large, those who are affected by policing. They want housing, they want jobs, they want UBI, they want access to varied health care, they want safe supply, they want all of the same things that we as a network want. So we're really heartened by the response so far and super excited to see what folks in the community have to say. And if you haven't filled it out yet, do so. Check out the Defund link tree for all of the information and follow us on all of our Instagrams at Defund604.
Fraser, what's the event here all about? So today we are from the Defund 604 network. We have some copies of the People's Budget Survey, which is one of the projects that we're doing to survey folks in the community about what they would want to do with the money that currently goes to the VPD from the City of Vancouver budget.
I am here with the demands crew from the Defund 604 network, and we are just hanging out in Oppenheimer. We're serving people some beverages and doing some people's budget surveys, which is another committee from Defund, and they created a survey to try and figure out how folks would want to spend the police budget if they weren't going to spend it on police. So that's about it. We're also hoping to chat with some folks about street sweeps and how street sweeps have affected their lives. So that's why we're here today.
Today we're at Oppenheimer Park on unceded Coast Salish territory, and we came out to ask folks from the neighborhood to fill out the survey that the Defund Network has created for the People's Budget. So the survey is a tool for people to provide input into how they would spend the police budget, and we know that a lot of folks outside of the police don't have a big say in where that money goes or even the amount. So we're trying to take power back by inviting people to imagine what they would do with $340 million, which is currently the budget of the VPD. And we know that in communities like the downtown east side and areas like Oppenheimer Park, the police maintain an active and ongoing presence. And we're just talking about police, right? We haven't even gotten into bylaw officers, city workers, private security guards, all of these forces that work together to basically criminalize people for their survival because they happen to live in poverty. I would love to see that money, that entire amount, come out of the police budget and really go into the community, go into the hands of people who live on marginal welfare rates, who live on poverty rates for disability. Imagining how, we haven't seen a raise to the shelter rate for 15 years, and it's $375, and the average rent for a one-bedroom in Vancouver is well over $1,000. So I'd love to take that money and just put it into community-led crisis response so that people don't have to live in crisis, so folks don't have to worry about living in their park and having all of their belongings thrown out because sheltering in public space is illegal. So there's a lot we can do with the money, but there's also the importance of changing our mindset about what the police do, because I think a lot of everyday folks think that the police keep the streets safe, they keep people out of harm's way, they support vulnerable communities, but that's not the reality. We know that what the police actually do is things like street sweeps, where they're throwing out people's belongings. We know they're robbing people of their cash, of their drugs, and all of that actually makes the situation even more dangerous. So I think that we can do a lot with $340 million. We could do a lot for free. We could decriminalize simple possession for free. We could stop criminalizing people who vend in public space for free.
If you would like more information about the People's Budget, check out the Defund Network link tree at linktr.ee/defund network.